On today's episode, I'm going to show you how to make this badass Mimic dice case. Stay tuned. Now for anybody who's played D&D or like Dark Souls or anything, a Mimic is going to be super familiar to you. Now for those of you who are not in the know, a Mimic is a classic D&D style monster that is able to mimic other things. Usually shows up in the form of like a treasure chest so that when you go to check it, it gets you like an ambush predator. To make my Mimic, I started with this little wooden box that I got from Michael's. These bad boys are only like $1.50, really cheap to get. And to make the actual Mimic on here itself, I'm going to my favorite clay, Super Sculpting. Alright, so for starters, the box comes with a little bit of locking hardware that I really didn't need for this build. So I busted out my little screwdriver and just got rid of that altogether. Now, the Super Sculpting, once dried, won't really stick to wood unless you apply a special adhesive to it. So I just ended up picking up this oven clay bake adhesive specifically tailored to this task. Alright, so the main kind of focus of this build are these gnarly teeth, so that's where I wanted to start. These are really easy to make. All I did was roll little tiny balls of the clay and then tapered out one end. I ended up needing about 20 of these to get this thing done. Next, I applied that adhesive to the upper jaw where I wanted the teeth to go and began pressing the teeth into place. Now notice as I'm pressing those teeth into place, I'm leaving a good amount of space in between them. That's because once I apply that adhesive and start putting these bottom teeth in, I want to make it so that they can close and scissor against each other. So adding that little bit of space is going to help give me some room for those teeth to pass by. Alright, happy with the placement of those teeth, next I need to put the gums in. To do that, I just applied a ribbon of clay over the roots of the teeth. Then I used a modeling tool to press in between them and shape them around each tooth. Of course, I did the same thing to the bottom as well. And I love how all this stuff fits together. It was already looking really cool without anything else done to it. Cool, so to get started on the rest of the face, I just applied some adhesive here to the top lid and smacked some clay on to get me started. This I just smoothed out as best as I could and made sure the edges were smoothed into the wood so it looked like it transitioned well. Because again, this thing is transforming into this chest, so I need to all make it look like it's one cohesive piece. Now for the little demon eye that goes in the middle of the face here, I'm using this dragon eye cabochon that I showed you how to make in this video here. This I just kind of smushed firmly into the center. Over the eye, I put in these two pieces of clay to form the lids, and then pressed and shaped them smooth before adding little wrinkles and details. That was looking kind of neat, but also a little flat. In order to add more expression, I kind of turned to Monsters, Inc., Mike Wazowski, for some inspiration. If you look at his art, you'll notice he has this big kind of eyebrow ridge that's used to show emotion. To achieve this myself, I just added a sausage of clay above the eye and shaped it into this angry little leer here. Alright, so as I said, this Mimic is becoming this chest, so I really wanted the clay to have a little bit of wood grain in it so it looked like it's really transitioning, like we caught it in the middle of its transformation. To make that effect, I just busted out this wire brush and scraped some lines into the clay right where it joined into the wood. This gives a really convincing grain effect. Next, to add in some of the scale pattern, I just busted out some of my hole punches from my leather crafting kit and made little circle indents of various sizes all over the surface. And I loved how this was looking. Already those little details really helped give it a lot of personality. With that, it was ready for the oven at 275 for about 30 minutes. This made the clay nice and hard and cured the adhesive that holds everything together. So after a light sanding, I added a base coat of black both inside and out. For the face, I decided to go with a nice purple acrylic just so it has a cool kind of pop to it. Next, I really kind of messily added in some pink and red for the gums, and then off-white with the teeth. I wasn't being too careful with those gums and kind of how everything meshed together because then I'd go back over it and just help that purple blend into that pink a lot. And doing this really using only 3 or 4 colors, I was able to get a pretty nice transition between all of them. Now for the actual wood on the box, I decided to use this golden brown color acrylic and dry brush it on. By dry brushing it, it lets a lot of the darkness of the black underneath come through in the deeper spots, which really accentuates the grain of the wood. I also let some of that brown color continue up into the purple of the Mimic, so again, it looks like he's actually transforming into this box. Next, I gave the little studs in the banding some silver paint, and finally added little spots of teal and light purple onto the face to add a little extra contrast. Okay, at this point it looks really cool, but to make everything look more cohesive and add more depth to the project, I decided to hit the whole thing with a wash. And doing this really does help everything come together. That being said, because you are adding a darker color over the surface of everything, it has a tendency to dull it a little bit as well. To add some highlights back in, I just went over everything with a very dry brush of light purple. Finally, to add protection and gloss to this, I busted out this crystal clear protective spray. I added a decent amount onto it because I wanted to get it to look kind of shiny and slimy in the face area here. And this stuff totally achieved that. Now it has this awesome wet slimy look and I love it. And there you have it! A creature keeper of dice and fingers if you're not careful. I hope you enjoyed this build. If you did, want to give me some of that like it love, and do not forget to subscribe so you know when I release new content. In the meantime, keep leveling up, you.